back, once again, I just cut out an appropriately sized piece of glass cloth to cover this side of the top of the wing, and we'll do both wing halves separately. That way we won't have to deal with the dihedral angle, and I will also save some glass cloth because I don't need to cut really long strips and I can use some leftover stuff. But feel free to do it in one go. I won't. So we start by laying down the glass cloth and pouring some epoxy on the middle of the wing. Like this. I will have to support the other side of the wing probably, so let me just do that. So, that's better. Just make sure the glass lays over the wing properly. And since the newspaper method won't be working this time because of the already set in dihedral angle, I will just let the glass hang over the edge, and we'll do it that way. That also works pretty well. If it can hang down over an edge. Glass the root first. Once again, make sure you wipe some excess epoxy over the edge of the wing, that way it will stick to the edges better. Work on the back of the wing. Okay, I just spread out all the glass. Now we need to wipe off the excess epoxy. So just like when spreading the glass, work from the inside out and make sure the glass nicely hangs over all the edges and there are no air bubbles. And just start working on it. I will probably keep wiping the wing down for a bit. You really don't want any air bubbles in there, so I will check it every once in a while, and you should do so too. Just check on it after half an hour or an hour and wipe down any air bubbles you see, because those air bubbles will ruin the finish and the strength of your wing. But now I don't see many air bubbles anymore, so we're on the right track. Okay, I will check on this after half an hour to see if the glass is laying down nicely, and you should do so too. And maybe a nice thing to know, the wing weighed approximately 40 grams before I started glassing the top of it, so we can check out how much it weighs now. It weighed a bit more than the previous version of the wing, but this one is so much stronger and I have some weight to spare, so I don't really care. Well, let it cure and check on it after a while. Another day has passed and the glass fiber on the top of the wings has now cured, so I will show you how to get it off again, the excess, and after that we'll glass the tips of the, oh no, I already did that. When we are done with that, we'll cut the slots for the wires and for the servos in the bottom of the wing, and then we'll just glass the bottom of the wing. Okay, to get off the excess fiberglass, you take some sandpaper and just start sanding lightly over the edge. And it isn't hard, anyone can do it. Just don't go too far, and you should see the glass over the edge turn whitish, and then you know you can take it off. So you can see some part of it came loose already, and that's what you want. Now I'll just continue like this for the rest of the wing. So I sanded off all the excess glass fiber. By the way, you should really wear a dust mask while doing this, because there is a lot of dust formation and that dust can cause cancer. But there are no air bubbles under the glass, and it has really adhered to the leading and trailing edge very well. So I'm really content with how this came out. I'll work up the rough edges for a bit, and then we'll draw out the slots for the servos and for the wires. I just touched up the edges of the wings and I sanded down the top of the wing a little bit, and now we should be ready to install our servos. These are the same servos I pulled out of the wing that failed, so I'll just be reusing them. They are fine. First of all, you'll need to determine where the servos will go. So I'll place the servo with the horn towards the aileron and look for a good place to mount them. And something like right here should be fine. So it's pretty close to the spar. I'll just draw out the shape of the cavity. Make sure to leave some extra space behind the servo like this to be able to stuff away the wires. Okay, now we'll take some measurements. 1 centimeter from the aileron, so I'll just draw that here, and the top of the servo should be about 1.3 centimeters from the aileron root. So draw that. One centimeter high. Alright. Now just take your servo and start drawing on this side. sure cavities are about the same size. Pretty much symmetrical. Next, you take your servo again and you place it right here and determine where the wire should go, and that should be right here. Now I'll just take a ruler, measure how far this is from the spar. The edge of the cavity should be about 2 centimeters from the middle of the spar. Same here. Same here. Just connect those up. Now make the cavity about 2 or 3 millimeters wide. I'll do 3 millimeters. It depends on how thick your servo wires are. We're done drawing. Now you take your trusty old scalpel and we just start digging out the foam like we did before. But we should make a really undeep cut for the wire cavity, and we should make the cavity for the servos as deep as the wing itself. So now I'll just start cutting. Nice and undeep cut for the wire cavity. Now cut out the servo cavity itself. Now when you're done cutting, just start digging out the foam again. And you should dig out the foam all the way to the top of the skin on the wing for the servo. That way the servo will sit down nice and flat in the wing. And just take your scalpel and scrape away any excess foam. Be careful not to cut into your fiberglass skin. Then you should be left with a cavity that looks somewhat like this. Your servo should fit in here really nicely, which it does. So job well done. Now dig out the cavity for the wing. And do not make this cavity as deep as the wing itself, because you don't really need that. Just an undeep slot will be enough. Okay, this side is done. Now we should do the other side, and then you need to get your wires and start laying them in there. After that you'll be able to glass the bottom of the wing. Okay, both cavities are done. Now I'm gonna get my wire, lay it in there, and then we'll start glassing the bottom of the wing. And we are nearly done with the wing, that means. So let's do that. Alright, I'm just mixing up some epoxy right now we are getting ready to glass the bottom of the wing, and after that we should be nearly done with the wing. I've installed my servo wires inside the wing, but I haven't installed the servos yet, and I just tack them down with a little bit of hot glue every few centimeters. And I've got my servo connector right here, so we'll lay the glass over top the wing. Then I'll cut a little hole for the servo connector to go through, like so. Then we need to lay it all down nice and flat. I might just work on it like this. So that's better. Then we just do the same thing as we did while glassing the last wing. You start by applying some epoxy on the middle of the wing and just move it outwards, and this is a little bit too much. Start working on it. So we're pretty much done here. Just need to wipe down the edges a bit more so they'll stick a bit better. Make sure there are no bubbles near the edges. And you might think that I cut the glass a bit generously, so I'm wasting a lot of glass, but yeah, you're right about that. But the good thing about it is that there's so much excess glass that it will be pulled down by gravity, and you have a better chance of the glass sticking to the edges of the wings. I will cut off some excess that is touching the workbench. So that's better. Now, you should just leave this set for another day, and then we should be ready to start cutting out our ailerons, and also we can mount our control horns, and then the wing should be finished. By the way, a bit late for it now, maybe, but if you want live hinged ailerons, you would need to put some Kevlar tape under this layer of glass, but if you are considering using live hinges, you probably know how to do this better than me, so you can also just use my double taped hinges method with regular tape. Hi there. I just sanded off the excess glass fiber around the edges with the same method we used at the tips, and the wing has come out pretty nicely. I still need to sand down some of the glass fiber, but you'll see how I do that, and it's getting really nice and stiff, and the middle part, the joiner where it broke previously, you can't even bend that, so it turned out pretty nicely. Now we need to cut out the ailerons and the slots for the aileron servos. So I'll start on the aileron servos. Just as before, I'll do one side and then I'll do the other side off camera, just to speed things up a bit. To cut out the slot for the aileron servo, you just stick your razor blade in there around the edges and start cutting. Be careful not to cut your wires. And that's it. Simple as that. Now the ailerons themselves are a bit more difficult to cut out. I brought a ruler once again. That way we'll get nice and straight cuts. I will first do this bit right here, the edge of the aileron, but I will need to put something underneath here in order to keep the wing at an angle I can cut the aileron at. So that's better, because of the airfoil the wing tends to drop. Now lay ruler next to the line and just make a light and deep cut. You just need to score the glass fiber enough so you can get your knife in there for the next cuts, which I did. Now I'll do the wing tip, same process. Just score it out. Right. Now, the main portion of the aileron, stick your ruler next to the line and just start lightly cutting, not a lot of pressure required. You only want to do a score cut first. And you'll cut progressively deeper as you go. So once your score cut is deep enough, you can cut out both edges. So it just pops out when you're done. Nice thin section right here. You can take a look at it. Looks good. Now we want to hinge and bevel the aileron. Since you want some more up throw to the aileron than down throw, just because you'll need some differential in order to cancel out any adverse yaw, we will bevel the bottom so the aileron can move freely on top, and at the bottom it can only move as much as the bevel allows. So that way we'll get some built-in differential. Now you take a file, make sure you get the bottom of the aileron and just start beveling it at a slight angle. So when you're done with the aileron itself, you should be left with a nice bevel on both sides. And if you lay it inside the slot, you should be able to move it a bit before it jams again. Now we need to bevel the slot for the aileron itself. For that I'll also use a file. Let's see if I can get this on camera, and I'll just file it down this way. Okay, now we beveled the inside, and yes, our aileron can move about this much, which is more than you'll ever need. Now we just take some sandpaper and smooth out this bevel. Nice to know this wing is now at 65 grams, so it should be about 70 grams with aileron servos and mounting glue, etc., which is relatively heavy, but it is really stiff now, and the previous wing weighed about the same, and since this is an F5B model, the wing is the bulk of the weight of the empty model. The fuselage only weighs like 20 or 30 grams, so not bad at all. The only thing you might notice if you take your own wing, if you're making it, you have some wing flex in it when you start really putting some pressure on the tips, but that's normal. Without using ludicrous amounts of carbon, you can't get a high aspect ratio so stiff that it won't bend at all. Even some high-end F5B models have some wing flex issues that some people find scary, but this is the best you can do with relatively normal materials. Okay, the only thing we need to do now is just file down the edges of the aileron a little bit so it will fit in the slot and not bind at all. And then I'll do the other side, and then we will install the aileron servos and the control horns. And after that I'll paint the wing and mount it, and then this build is over. And I'll just see if this one breaks or not. Probably not. Okay, I hope you can see this, but the aileron fits in there nicely, can move up, can move down, and isn't binding at all. So we're done here. Now I'll just do the other wing, and then we'll install the aileron servos. See you there. So I cut out the other aileron, and I got a servo right here, and I marked the spot where the control horns should go. So now I'll just cut out some small slots for the control horns, and then I'll install the ailerons, and the control horns will come last, because I'm still waiting on the glue for those. Right, I have my aileron right here, and now let me just zoom in a bit. Okay, that's better. Now we just take a sharp scalpel and cut out like a millimeter next to the marked line on both sides. And then you just dig out the glass fiber and the foam that's in there. Make sure to not cut the skin on the other side of the wing. And once you've done that, like so, that is done. Now I'll do the other one. So this slot is also done. Now I install the ailerons with taped hinges, but I use this Uhu polyurethane, styropor glue to tack down the tape so it will never come off. And I also like to hinge the ailerons on both sides to get a really nice and strong linkage. So we will start on this aileron. We take the pour, get the loop off of the tip of it, and then we just start applying glue near the hinge point, as close to that knife edge as possible. And then we apply a second layer a bit further away. We take our aileron for that side and do the same thing right there. So close to the edge. and a little bit further away. Okay, now you need to let that dry just a little bit so it tacks up nicely. So I'll do the other half in the meantime. Now we turn it around again to get to the other side. We take some tape, just normal tape will do. And we tape it on there. And we stretch it out nicely. Then we take the aileron itself and apply it to the tape. And make sure you get it as tautly against the hinge line as possible. Now take some small scissors, cut off the excess. Same thing at the aileron root. So that's done. Then we turn it over to the other side, do the same thing. Okay, that one is on there as well. Now you'll need to let both sides dry it just a little while, and then we will hinge the bottom of the ailerons for extra strong linkages. We turn it over to the other side again, but the bottom. Now, this part is relatively tricky. You prop up one side of the wing. It can't move. I'll use this tape dispenser and a file, but I need to switch them around because the tape dispenser is a bit too high. Okay, now take a small piece of tape and you tape down this aileron at a bit of an angle, like so. Then you take the glue and you glue the inside of the hinge line, so you glue the beveled edges. Get a nice even and thin layer of glue in there. Now you glue the flat part of the aileron near the knife edge, and the same for the wing panel. This needs to dry just like before, so we'll flip around the wing and do the same for the other side. This side is done. We flip it over again. Now, take some tape. And lay it up against the edge right here on the inside of the hinge. Then all the way to the bottom. Now you untape, you just press this into the hinge with your fingernail, trim it to size a bit, right, and push it in there again. Now we just close the hinge, press it shut, and we start pressing down the hinge tape properly. Now we go to the other side. We make sure there isn't any slack in the hinge, so just push the aileron into the hinge and pull the tape tight. And now you should be left with a nice double hinged aileron that probably won't flutter. I'll do the same for the other side. Make sure to press the tape into the hinge every once in a while and also pull this tight again until the glue fully cures, and then you're done. So I'll now do the other half of the wing off camera. Okay, I just mounted my control horns, which I got out of a old credit card with some foam safe CA. You do it in the way you like. You probably know how to mount a control horn. And here's the fuselage, which I pulled the old wing off of. So now we'll just need to mount the servos with some hot glue, and then we'll mount the wing onto the fuselage and we'll be done. So let's take the wing, go to the hot glue gun and just lift out the servo with the wire, put some hot glue on the servo and stuff it in. I can't film this with only one hand, so I'll do this off camera and then I'll show the result. So I just mounted the ailerons with just some hot glue, but they still stick out of the wing a little bit and this is not really aerodynamic, so we need to cover them up with something, and for that I will be using just some tape, which I will stick down with Uhu Por polystyrene glue, which works really well because it's incredibly sticky. So if you don't have any similar glue, just regular CA or something should work as well, but it won't be as flexible or sticky. Let's see. Right. Just smear some glue on here around the edges especially. So a little bit on top. Same on the other side. And now just let that dry for a little bit so it becomes tacky, and then stick some tape over it. Simple as that. I just made some nice tape covers for the servos. Those are in there, and now we are ready to mount the wing onto the fuselage. I just need to plug in my servo connector right here, and then you get your best CA and just glue it down right there, and after that we'll gloss over the top of it, and near the sides you can still see traces of that. So let's do it, and then this tutorial should be done. So I hope your wing came out as nicely as mine. It's really stiff, and let's mount it.